hustlers, road players, tournament champions. Hear the stories, get their advice, learn about their lives. Our host, Joey Ryan, brings you an inside look at the professional pool player. You're listening to the Pool Player Podcast, brought to you by Pool Scene 365.
Hey guys, I'm really excited for this interview. I think you guys are really going to like it. Kristina Zlateva is an up-and-coming professional women's player out of Bulgaria. Didn't know a whole lot about Bulgaria before this interview, so I try to ask some questions about that. I really think you're going to like Kristina. She's a great player, and she actually has a job. She's a computer programmer. We get into that a little bit, and how really being a programmer involves logic and solving problems, and how she applies that to the game of pool. We talk about a number of other things, her goals, advice for players, all the normal stuff that we cover in a Pool Player Podcast interview. But I think, like me, you're really going to love her personality, her approach to the game, and her positivity. She's going to do big things in the sport. Mark my words. So, guys, without further ado, Kristina Zlateva. Hi, Kristina. How are you? I'm so glad you joined.
Hi, yeah, I'm glad that you invited me too. I'm really happy to be part of your podcast.
Yeah, well, I saw you. I had been following you for a while, and I saw you in Las Vegas, and I must have scared you because I just headed straight for you. And I said, "Hey, Kristina, I'm Joey." And, I'm kind of an introvert, so that was weird for me. But that's how bad I wanted to interview
Really?
you. And you were playing pool with Roberto Gomez, and I've interviewed him. I've had him on the show. And I said, I really want to chat with you. And you've been so awesome in messaging and following up and getting this done. I just want to thank you before we even get going. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate the opportunity you're giving me, and I think not many people know me anyways, like personally from pool, especially in the States. So it's actually a great way to get to know the players.
Well, that's kind of what I do. I try to get to know a side of the pool players that people don't see on a live stream because I've had the chance to watch you play. You're a fabulous player, but I really was curious to know more about you. So, why don't you take us through kind of how you got started playing pool?
Well, it was kind of lucky because when I was in high school, there was a pool room nearby, but I wasn't really going there. But I saw like an advertisement in the high school that they were giving free lessons for a month. So me and a friend of mine, we just signed up for the free lessons, and that's how we started. I was 15 years old, so that makes it like 14 years ago. I was 15 years old, and that's actually how I got started. I was pretty lucky that they organized this kind of project with free lessons, and they were just for a month. Then I actually didn't really have any coach until very recently. But that's how I got started, and that same summer when I started, I was actually playing maybe 5, 6, 7 hours a day the whole summer.
Really? So
Yeah.
you immediately got the fever to play pool, like a lot of us, right? As soon as we start making a few balls, then all of a sudden we want to play even more.
Yeah. I've always been into sports, and back then I was practicing basketball, but I was in a high school team, which wasn't really too big of a deal. But we had like our weekly practice sessions and everything. And I really love sports, and I was quite competitive, and I find that pool is such a hard game, and it's so complex. We got the coordination, the mental. You have to be mentally very well prepared, like mental tough. And it's just so interesting, all the logic and stuff. And I was good in math in high school, so I liked all the logical parts of the game.
The geometry and all of
Yeah,
that, the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
angles.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
kind of find it very
when
interesting.
when was that moment that you realized like, hey, you know what? I could be pretty good at this. I'm not just making a couple balls, but I'm actually impressing other people, maybe impressing myself. Was there a moment you can look back to where you realized I could be really good at this sport?
Well, the thing is, I always think that because I'm very dedicated to what I do, I'm very determined. So I always think I can get good at what I'm doing. Actually, it's just because I don't give up easily. So for me, it's just that if I, if I invest in enough time and I uh get the right information, find the right information for this, and I know I can always get better. So this is with everything I do. I think if I can, that I am capable of being very good, actually, except for just a few things where you really have to be very naturally talented, like singing, maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
I went to singing classes, but for a month, and I wasn't bad, but I know I can be very good there, right? But especially in sports, I think I can. I just I don't know. I just feel like I can just develop that capacity, like most of the people probably. I think the problem is that many of the people, they just don't believe in themselves too much for some reason. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like
I
I can
think
do
I think I might disagree with you that most people think that way. I think most people think the other way and lack confidence and think that certain
everything.
people are born with gifts, right? Like Kristina Zlateva is born with a gift to play pool, and they ignore the fact that you've put yourself in the right positions and you've worked your butt off to get where
Yeah,
you
oh,
are.
exactly.
Yeah, when you hear professional athletes, Lionel Messi or Michael Jordan, the greatest athletes, Kobe Bryant, in their sports, all of them go back and say, I worked harder than anyone else. And I think that's really profound. Do you have, you said putting yourself in the right position, putting yourself, under the right teaching. Who would you say most influenced you in that area? Did you have a coach or someone that really helped you to learn the sport?
Yeah, like I told you, I just had some free lessons during that project for a month. Then I was actually watching a lot of YouTube. I was fortunate enough that we already had YouTube when I started playing pool. So I was watching Mosconi Cup. One of the good players in Bulgaria, probably the best player at the time. He told me to watch Mastering Pool series of Mika Immonen. So they were also on YouTube, I think, and they were actually very good in explaining the basics. Yeah, pretty much just the basics, some bangs and kicks, but that's it. And I was actually just watching a lot of Mosconi Cup, to be honest, World Pool Masters, and this is, yeah, I can say I'm mostly self-taught, but
That's
just because of
crazy.
that, no, yeah, but just because of that, I've changed my technique and my stance and everything so much that it just, to be honest, yeah, it kind of
I'm
it didn't help my consistency in the game, I guess, but yeah, now things
I'm
are better.
I'm sitting here talking to a woman's professional pool player who told me that basically she learned how to play pool watching YouTube. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, pretty much. That was like in the
That's awesome.
first, maybe that was in the first, I don't know, uh, 5, 6, 7 years I've played. Then I had a few sessions. I had one session with Alex Laley for a few days, just then
Okay.
another one with Darren Appleton, just for a few days too. I mean, they weren't really my coaches, right? And now, since last September, we had a very good coach in my pool hall. He's also the coach of other players there and of the best Bulgarian player, Georgi Georgiev. And yeah, he's actually very good also on the mental side of the game. Technically, he's very good at seeing what you're doing wrong, probably what you can improve. And he's actually very good at he if I have something which have to improve technically, let's say, which most of us normally have,
Yeah.
he won't just say me you have to do this way. He's just trying to find the word which will help me to for me to just progress naturally from there. So he doesn't want to just change my game. He just wants me to find a way to make it better, like naturally. It's just actually, it helps a lot.
I love
And
that because
yeah.
I my boys play competitive soccer. You would call it
Mhm.
football, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the best coach they ever had is the one that says to them, "What do you think you could have done better there?" or what do you think maybe you're doing wrong? And then it gets them to think about the possibilities and the things and work out a plan
Yeah.
for them, not telling them you need to do this now. So I really like that. Maybe uh, folks out there that are listening that are looking for a coach will look for that type of quality in a coach, and it might help their game. uh, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm curious. So when there's a big difference between winning tournaments in your town. By the way, what is your town? Where do you live?
I live in Sofia, Bulgaria,
Okay.
currently.
Yeah, that's the big
Right
city
now.
in Bulgaria, right? The capital?
Yeah, yeah, that's the capital. Right now, I'm in Austria though, because I'm playing the Euro Tour tomorrow.
Oh,
It's
gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah. So I actually have a degree in geography. So as soon as I knew that we were going to interview, I started looking on the map because I didn't know a whole lot about Bulgaria. So um, tell me a little bit about the pool scene there and what it's like. Are there a lot of pool rooms? Is it not a lot of players, a lot of players, gambling matches, tournaments? What's going on there?
yeah. Well, Bulgaria is not really popular worldwide, I guess. um, and I'm pretty sure you don't know any player from Bulgaria. We have some good players. We have maybe I know maybe 5 or 6 players which play in the really high level. They could actually compete internationally. A few of them do. Um, so we have probably one of the biggest successes of Bulgarian players. Our Stanimir Ruslanov, he finished second in the European Championships 5 years ago. So that was pretty big. That was the first medal for Bulgarian male player in the European Championships ever. So
Wow.
that was pretty good. But to be honest, I mean, the pool in Bulgaria has never been really too big. Um, for example, there aren't any other women competing internationally right now. There are a few girls who can, they they have the talent, they can play, but they're not really practicing a lot or anything. So just right now, it's just me, for example, for the girls. Guys, yeah, our best player, best ranked player right now, Georgi Georgiev. He's playing in the same pool hall as me. He's also playing the Euro Tour here, and he's gonna play the U.S. Open. So I think in the future you're gonna see more of the Bulgarian players, especially with him and a few others. And the sport is really developing now. We have the most amount of pool rooms we have in Sofia, yeah, and probably the best players are there. There are a few other cities with very good players, and they're actually developing a very good training academies right now with the new federation we have. They're doing like pool schools. They're also going to different schools to promote the sport. So I think it's headed in the right direction. Right now in our pool hall, we have maybe 20 kids.
Hmm.
Kids, I'm talking about like 8 to maybe 15 years old who are,
Juniors.
yeah, 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 absolutely. They're very, I mean, they're very talented, and our coach is very good. I mean, you can see that their technique is getting really good with his methods. So I think it's going to be a very good future. About gambling matches, I wouldn't say they gamble a lot. I've never gambled in Bulgaria, and it's not that I don't mind gambling. It's just I mean, we all know each other, so it's like Bulgaria is a small country.
Yeah,
You
I
can really
found that
get.
there's a different it's a different mindset about gambling in Europe and the United States.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, in
that's
the United
true.
States, it's it's no big deal. A lot of people play for money, and we see that. I remember there was a Facebook post a while back where Federer Gorst barked a little at who was it? Kachi, and
Mhm.
Kachi kind of took it personally. And it seems that that happens occasionally with Europeans, almost like uh, don't come at me like that with gambling. But in the United States, it's nothing like it's easy to go to a pool room and see people, and then they play, and afterwards they shake hands, and everything's cool. Have you noticed that yourself?
Oh yeah, yeah, and I enjoy gambling. Like, I think it's very good for my game. I mean, I've never gambled more than like $200, right? I haven't played a big money match, although I'd like to, because I think it's really good. It's good. I don't. see why it's bad
Who?
for
Okay,
sport right
who?
now.
If you could pick one opponent for that big money match, who would it be?
Well, I'd like it to be. I mean, let's say let's say I'd like to play a girl for that. Although I don't mind playing a man. It's just, let's say it's going to be maybe more interesting if I play a girl. I don't know.
Which one?
Uh, there are a few which, I mean, let's say it has to be kind of a similar level. Like, well, even if they were my friends, I don't know. I think we would make a good match with Pia, for example.
Mm,
Pia. I hadn't talked to her about it, so maybe she finds out from here.
through this podcast.
Maybe she finds out from here.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good match. Uh, there are a few others, but some of them don't really like to play many matches either.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe a few of the Taiwanese were also good opponents. But lately I've been thinking about that, and I think we would really make a good match with Pia. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. We'll try to make that happen. No, I'm kidding. Uh, so
Be nice.
I met you at the CSI Expo. You were spending time in the United States. I know you went to a couple of the WPBA events last year, a few of them. So tell us about your time in the United States, what you enjoy about being over here in the United States and playing pool here.
Oh, I actually, yeah, I loved it there. Even though I had to work the whole time I was there, I managed it all right though, and it was actually great. I love the atmosphere and love how passionate the people are about the sport. You don't really see that much this in Europe. It's not. I mean, it's not the same, obviously. And the people were so kind everywhere. Not only in pool, but in general. I think people in the States are really kind compared to Eastern Europe, at least. We're a little bit cold blooded. And yeah,
Cold blooded? Wait a minute. What do you mean?
it's just a little bit not that kind, I guess.
Have you spent time in the Northeast part of the United States? Because they're a little edgy in the Northeast. No offense to my Northeast
I heard,
followers.
I heard that, but you wouldn't. I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't. You wouldn't like catch my attention because I'm used to that.
Oh,
Probably. Nah. I mean, I lived in Spain for 8 years, so I'm used to warm people and people like really kind people, right? But just in Eastern Europe, it's not exactly like that.
yeah. So
So that's a big difference for me. Another thing is everyone I met, like in the pool world, they're so kind and helpful with everything that it just. And I met so many people, like Angel Levine, for example, in Chicago. She's a friend of mine who they just want to give to the sport. Like they really want to develop the sport. They want to
yeah,
the sport to grow. Yeah, I mean, without trying to make money out of it or anything, without they just really do it from their pure love for the sport, which is great. Like it's really great. And I spent a lot of time with the Filipinos too, and I saw like the way they enjoy the game. It's kind of, I mean, I took that with me. Right now, I wouldn't. I always, when I play tournament, even when I practice, doesn't really matter. I mean, I have much less pressure playing because I always really enjoy the game. Doesn't matter. I may feel very bad that day for some reason, but I'll still try to enjoy the game as much as possible because otherwise, first of all, you wouldn't last that long, right? If you always put pressure on yourself,
yeah.
then it's not, why are you doing it anyway? So I mean, it's not just about winning some tournaments or not, right? It just
So yeah,
yeah,
totally. And I want to dive into kind of your mindset approaching
sure.
pool and but I'm going to get to that in a second because you said something that I think is pretty important. You said that when you were in the United States, you had to work every day. And so the funny thing is, don't consider me a stalker, but when I was looking into you, I was Googling, I was trying to find you, and I found your LinkedIn profile. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure it's going to say professional pool player, but it didn't. It said developer. And so I'm like, is this the same person? Do you have a job as like an IT professional doing like, programming or development? And you were like, yeah, that's me. So, like, how did that happen? How did you get into IT? And I
Yeah.
guess the bigger question, how do you manage that and playing competitive pool at a high level?
Yeah, so I've always had in my mind that if at some point it's possible, I want to play pool professionally. But until now, it wasn't really possible because, especially in Europe, you can't really make money playing tournaments in Europe. Um, so actually, if you let me, I'm gonna tell you how I got to the IT
Yeah.
uh, area
Okay.
because in the university, yeah, I went to Spain to study. I studied commerce there. Oh, I didn't study software. So I studied commerce. I finished my degree in the university. Then I worked in that field for 4 years. But it was an office job, like 9 to 6. And I was still practicing, but it was even harder because I could only go to practice late nights because I was also traveling a lot from where I live to my office. I couldn't work remotely,
Mm,
so it was quite. I mean, I was tired all the time, obviously
yeah.
doing. Um, but I was still there are some periods where I actually stopped playing, but there were just a few of them, and not for too long, because I always had it in my mind that I would just want to continue practicing and do as much as I can in the current situation. So at some point, I decided that I actually wanted to change my career because with this, it wouldn't be possible to play many tournaments. Also, because I had limited holidays, and with my job, I couldn't travel and work, right? So I went back to Bulgaria because we have very good software academies there. I did a software like React front end uh, course for 6 months, and then they immediately hired me in a Bulgarian company. So I just started working like a software engineer. That was 2.5 years ago. So I'm
Wow.
actually quite new in the field, but it definitely helps me because I'm more flexible and I can also work remotely. So I can schedule and organize my time better, and yeah, that's been the
But
situation.
so you're a coder. You write code.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
that's what it
I've
is.
always admired people who do that because it's kind of like it's a creative endeavor. So when you have nothing and then you start writing code, it turns into something. It turns into something cool. It could turn into an app. It could turn into a
Yeah.
website. All of these things. And so I wonder, uh, you have to have. You said you had a background in math, and you got into this career field in computers and IT. Is there any benefits you think to having that background or your mind working that way when it comes to playing pool?
Yeah, I think, yeah, my my job and the pool, they kind of complete each other a little bit because, well, in both, actually it's a creative process, yeah, but actually most of the time, like many developers know, most of the time you just have to solve problems. So I'm kind of solving problems most of the time there, as in the pool table we do the same. You kind of have to solve small problems to, like, to run out, for example, or to win the game. And I find my job very interesting, also very helpful for my focus because um, in the previous job I had, for example, I had to communicate more to some providers. I had to make more phone calls, and it was just very so many small tasks I had to do. But now it's, for example, I have a big task and I spend much more time on one task, which helps my focus because I can just stay focused on the same thing for longer. And it's actually, I really think it's so much better. I feel when I work, for example, if I have a lot of work one given day, and I spend, I don't know, 5-6 hours doing working on the same issue, then I'm actually quite sharp. Even when I play pool, I'm more focused than if I before I had to talk to this person, talk to the other person, and your mind is more like, I don't know,
Yeah,
scattered.
that's interesting because we've all had that experience, I think, where, if you eat a big meal and then try to play pool, it's kind of like your body's working on digestion, so you can kind of not be thinking clearly. But it's almost like if you go to work and you do some coding and solve some problems, when you get to the pool table, it's kind of like you're already in gear. You're already thinking about solving problems. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because another thing what I didn't like in my work before that, it was just kind of like the same thing every day. It wasn't really too creative, so it's like your brain doesn't have to work that hard. You still
Yeah.
have to solve some things, but yeah, it's not the same. And this one is much more challenging, so it helps your brain develop these parts even better. And nutrition is like a whole other story where I'm
Yeah, tell
also.
us about that. Tell us about your nutrition.
Oh, yeah, I'm probably a little bit obsessed about that subject. Since I've been 14, I've been like reading books and watching videos about nutrition, and I've probably done all the diets you can imagine, just because I like to experiment with my body, because everyone's different, and I want to know what works best for me, because I think we should be able to have like enough energy for the day. I don't think it's normal that, for example, I get up, I have breakfast or whatever, and then I feel sleepy, and then I don't think that's how we should function.
Right.
Like
No.
people that the energy is like up and down during the whole day, and especially for tournaments, you cannot be like that, right? If you're like that, then it's gonna be very hard. So yeah, I'm still experimenting with this, and there are, for example, if you know Alex Pagulayan, he's also very into
Yes.
these things, and fasting obviously helps a lot on that. You don't want to play on full stomach for sure, and many players, for example, like playing without having breakfast or without eating for most of the day, and then on a game on tournament days they just maybe have some small meals, one or two small meals, and that's it during the day. For me, uh I'm not really eating too many carbs, although, well, carbs are not the problem. It's like I find myself when I eat grains and this kind of carbs, I my body is more sluggish,
Yeah.
so I prefer to eat more stuff like, let's say, nuts, fish. If I eat meat too much, then I also feel like it's harder for my body to digest everything. So that's the most important thing for me. Just eat plenty of vegetables, to be honest, and eat soon enough before I go to bed. So these two things are most important. And now I'm actually quitting caffeine. So
You're quitting caffeine?
yeah, because it
You're not
just
going to believe,
doesn't work.
Christina, you're not going to believe this. I have two coffees here. I have a hot one and I have a cold one. And
Yeah,
you're quitting
no.
caffeine. You're killing me.
Listen, I love coffee. That's the problem, that with most of the people are probably addicted, but for me it's not working just because of that. I don't want to. If I have coffee in the morning, then in the afternoon I feel like I'm gonna fall asleep, like so sleepy,
Yeah.
just because of the coffee effect, right? Some people are not that sensitive, but I feel like I am very sensitive. So now I've been having just decaf sometimes, and without even green tea or anything. That's so it's actually it's worked all right. I just had a few days which were very tough.
So I'm not sure if you follow any other podcasts other than Pool Player Podcast, but there are other ones out there. And there's a guy named Andrew Huberman, the Huberman
Yeah,
Lab.
I know him.
Yeah, and he talks about one thing he says about coffee, which I found interesting, is that most people do it wrong. They wake up first thing in the morning and they have a cup of coffee. And he says if you wait 90 minutes after you wake up and then have a cup of coffee, then you don't hit that period where you just kind of fall off the cliff. You know what I mean? Like when you
Yeah.
wake up and drink coffee, you'll feel great for a little while, but then you'll like kind of dip. But he says if you wait 90 minutes and then drink coffee, then it'll be more even throughout the day in terms of your energy. So maybe that's something to try before giving up coffee cold turkey, because I
Yeah.
don't know how you're going to do that. But
Because,
yeah,
yeah.
like you, I've experimented with a bunch of different types of diets and ways of eating and fasting, not fasting, and trying to play pool while doing this, trying to play pool while weight training, things like that. There's a lot that goes into that. But one thing that I've found that I think everybody's body's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And, some people tolerate carbs better than others. One thing that I think a lot of us have a hard time with is sugar. And in the United States, years ago, it was determined that sugar's not so bad. Some of these other things are bad. And so even a lot of the policy that was created in the United States is kind of not correct. Really, our overuse of sugar leads to a lot of problems, a lot of disease, all of that is what I'm finding. And so when I talk to people like you that say, you know what, I do nuts, I do carbs, I do this, you know, it's great, but if you're doing a lot of sugar, you find that a lot of people start to have problems. And so that's one thing that I struggle with because I have a sweet tooth. So
Yeah.
I like eating sugar, but and I think a lot of pool players do too. I can't tell you how many times one of the most popular items in a pool room is a candy bar. They feel like, oh, it's 9 o'clock at night. I can't eat a big meal, but I'm hungry now. Give me a Snickers, and they'll eat a candy bar, and it's not good for.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
it's
not good
very
for
addictive. Yeah, I'm not eating sugar at all, for example. I just
nothing.
the only
No
sugar
sugar.
No, the only sugar I may eat is like I have these raw bars. They have dates in them, so that's the sugar
Natural.
I
Yeah.
could eat. Yeah, it's still sugar because they're dates. So I don't eat more than one a day, or for example, especially when I don't know, if I feel extremely tired and if I have many matches in a row, I may eat more. But normally, it's yeah, I don't eat any other kind of sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, carbs are sugar, but I don't eat too many carbs either. So, yeah, it's absolutely. But yeah, it's just that people are so used to sugar, and your brain, when once you already ate sugar that day, like your insulin levels are gonna be like that, and then you have to eat again, and it's like, yeah,
It's a cycle. Yeah, it's not good. But back to the
some
pool
people,
thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
let's.
Back to the pool thing, because this isn't a nutrition podcast. I'm definitely
Yeah.
not equipped to spout a lot of knowledge when it comes to that. But back to your pool playing, where was that moment where you made that transition from an amateur pool player, had a job, to saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to go out and compete with on the WPBA. I'm going to go out and play in, some of these bigger events. Was there a moment where that kind of clicked for you and you knew that, hey, I can do this professionally?
Yeah, the thing is, it was I think important moment was last year, the beginning of last year, 2022. um, um when I was playing the European Championships, I was still practicing enough. I was still having my job, but I felt like, I wasn't really. I felt like in the tournament, that was the European Championships, I felt like I could play much better, and I felt like I wasn't giving all, and I just hate doing something like halfways. Let's say it this way.
Yeah.
When I know I can prepare much better, and I know I can be much better. So I just hate, if I'm gonna play the tournaments, then I want to do it the right way. And also, I think that was a very determined, like, important point. One, and actually, I was talking to one guy, a Spanish guy here, and I was telling him about it because I didn't really see it didn't make any sense to me, especially playing the European Championships. There is no prize money, anyways. So it's like, for me, that doesn't make any sense. And he's like, well, yeah, you just have to decide if you're taking this thing seriously or not, or you're just doing it for fun. And I mean, I still do it for fun, but it's just if I don't take it seriously, then I don't want to do it. Like I wouldn't practice that much, and I wouldn't compete, and I wouldn't enjoy it that much unless I give everything I can at that moment. So last year there was like a crucial moment. Then actually I got lucky to be able to play in the World Nine Ball, the Matchroom World Nine Ball, in London. So I had a few interesting matches there, and actually after that I just thought, okay, let's try to play as many tournaments as I can and just travel more. I mean, I'm working, so I can do that. uh what helped me a lot too is that first of all Predator started making more women's tournaments with good prize money.
Mm.
Also, the owner of my pool hall, Oleg Valinov, he's also the president of the Snooker Federation in Bulgaria. He became my sponsor, so he was helping with my expenses, which kind of like took the pressure away a little bit for that part of, and gave me more opportunities to travel abroad. So first I went to Canada and I finished third actually there. I don't even know how because I wasn't really feeling my game the whole tournament, but well, I liked Predator format to be honest. So yeah, I got lucky to finish third there. So I kind of I liked it a lot, and I started going to other tournaments after that. And it was like that moment when I thought, okay, let's just try and play as many tournaments as I can. Uh, and I didn't know I was going to deal with my job too. Now I'm more used to it, and it's easier for me to balance things for now. But yeah, it was very challenging, obviously, and sometimes I feel very tired still because I have to think on many things, not only pool. But it's been working good, I guess, because my results are, at least they're consistent, right? And I feel like I'm getting better and more confident, especially after my trip in the US. I actually feel I learned a lot there. So
Yeah. So
that's how
your
it's been.
results have been really good. You've been top 5 a number of times, top 10. It seems like maybe that signature stamp, that signature win to say, yes, I'm here. You're still awaiting that maybe in one of the major events. Do you feel like that's coming this year?
Yeah, I feel there's been like a big difference in my mindset and my confidence, especially because before, when I was going to the tournaments, I mean, I know I can get far, but I never felt like yeah, sure, I can win this event. Well, I mean, some people said, but I didn't really feel it. um but right now I feel, oh, in the last few months, whenever I go, I feel I can win it. I mean, it just, obviously it's not that easy, but I feel I have it in me to win it. Even though I mean, even if I'm not the best player there, I can still win it. I have the game to beat all of them if I'm playing good on a particular day. So yeah, probably it's coming. It's not like, I mean, of course it's nice to win, but what I'm looking more in my game is to actually to work on the things I've been missing, maybe some details, and basically it just to feel really comfortable playing the tournaments and enjoying them, and beating more of the top players more often. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it happens, right? It's you play a top player and they beat you 10 times in a row, and then all of a sudden you win one. And now they beat you 9 more times, but then you win a couple and they beat you 8 times, and by the
Yeah.
time, I tell people this all the time as they're getting better, by the time you're beating that player above you 3 or 4 times out of 10, you're basically the same player. It's just you don't have the same belief, right? And once
Yeah.
you have that belief, you start beating them 6 times out of 10. It's such a mental game, this sport that
Yeah.
we play, and so much of it comes down to that, because when you're in the heat of pressure and you're late in a match and you miss a routine shot that you've made thousands, hundreds of thousands of times in your career, and you just shoot it right into the rail, it's not physical. at that point. It's got to be mental. So tell folks what you do to try to control your emotions, to approach the game mentally when you're in a high pressure situation.
Yeah, I've always been interested in psychology too, right? So I've tried many different things, and some work for me, some things don't. So it's important to just find just a few things you can use in the particular time of the game, which work for you, and practice them as much as you can in practice, so that you can, when you're in the tournament, you can just use them straight away whenever you need to. Like for example, obviously, almost everyone knows that breathing is maybe the first place for, because it's the main tool to control um, your emotions, your nervousness, your anxiety, everything. Like breathing is the best tool for that. And I always pay attention to that when I play important matches, when I play, also when I play someone who, I mean, some of the matches I'm not that, uh, I don't have any pressure at all, which can be a bad thing, right? Because you're too relaxed. You don't want to be too relaxed. You still want to find some kind of challenge which can kind of get you in the right mindset and in the right focus. So if you're too relaxed, you can still use your breathing to get a little bit more excited, mm, you uh, more into the game. There's one thing. Another thing is then that apart, okay, you can focus on your breathing. You can breathe in. You use different techniques, but you always have to be mindful of your thoughts, right? Because sometimes I can catch myself uh thinking about, I know, some, if in some given match I don't feel very good, so I'm starting to think about my stroke too much, or about what am I doing wrong. And it's sometimes it's just like your mind can get away with this, and it really takes away the focus from the game. So you have to be, another thing I use is just, when I'm thinking too much, I just kind of try to just watch my thoughts, don't really pay attention to them, just try to refocus. And when I'm on the table, I have a few things which I pay attention to when I don't feel comfortable. For example, the loose wrist, the loose grip. That's very important. The way I get into the shot, my routine. There are a few points which everyone can just try and, it has to just memorize and just use them. Practice this in at home, and then use this in tournaments, because you're not going to feel great every time you play. That most of the time you don't feel great actually. Just sometimes you do. So this is key. Also music before the match, for example, music is very important. So there are some, I don't like listening to song with lyrics. Maybe very very rarely, if if I feel like it. But most of the times I listen to uh different kind of music, more with, for example, I know, white noise music, or binaural beats, stuff like this, which are different waves,
Yeah.
right? Um, I found out that my focus is so much better if I just listen to this before, in the time before matches. I don't really have to listen to this and pay attention to it. I just put my earbuds, right, and play this on, and it's like on the background. But then my mind is better prepared.
Yeah, that's interesting. It seems like you've experimented with nutrition, you've experimented with other things to relax yourself prior to a match. It's kind of neat. I have a few things here at my house. I have a cold plunge, I have an infrared sauna,
Oh,
and I've done some experimenting myself. And how do I play pool after I've been in the infrared sauna? Or I think in a lot of sports that's something that people dive into and really try to utilize other techniques, that could help relax their body or help them perform to their optimal. And in pool,
Yeah.
especially in the United States, it's you have a lot of top players in the United States that maybe aren't so focused on nutrition, aren't as fit, because of kind of the culture here and the way that pool is, right? It's a hangout at the bar, and a lot of people who are
Yeah.
great players here just spent a whole lot of time playing in a bar late at night, eating bad food, stuff like that. But I think that's something that the Europeans are really bringing to the sport, and that's why the level has really increased. Do you feel that way? Do you feel similar that maybe the Europeans have brought a different angle to the game of pool, something different that's helped to elevate it?
Yeah, for sure. I think they're much more disciplined in general, right? Like you said, also obviously sports and working out, that's also a huge part of it. And I've experimented with this a lot too. um, so it's a very complete. It's not only about playing pool. It's about, in order to be very good at whatever you do, you just need these things to be in order. I think. I mean, you kind of, because they're giving you advantage. So all these nutrition, sports, all these mindful techniques, everything is just helping so much for you to be better in whatever you do. I think, I mean, even if I want to play a guitar, if I'm use my techniques, mental techniques, and I do sports, my nutrition is better, it just my brain is gonna work and my body is gonna work so much better. So in whatever I do, I just need these things to be in order so that I can perform better. That's how I think. Well, about the European and American things, probably, I mean, if my first time in America was last September, so I'm not really sure how were things way before. It's all I've heard before that of America was the bad food. Actually, I was scared to go to America because of the food. Then I found out, I mean, it's not that bad, and you can always find healthy options. You just have to be mindful about it.
What was your favorite
um,
food in America?
um, well, most of the time I was cooking at home at the Airbnbs.
Oh,
Um, favorite food? Uh, I like the Korean barbecue.
oh yeah.
I've never been to a Korean barbecue before. Before I
Uh,
went
That's
there,
so funny. I asked you your favorite food in America, and you say Korean barbecue.
well,
So-
like, what I ate the most? Salmon.
oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, the Pacific Northwest has a lot of good salmon, right? That
Yeah,
they catch wild, and
yeah.
yeah, it's really good.
Because I don't
So
know what to say. I don't really like. I don't eat fast food at all, and I don't really like steaks. I mean, I can eat, but it's not my favorite food. So I don't know how to answer.
gotcha. No, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
So what? So far in your career, what would you say has been your most crushing defeat?
Uh, well, the most recent one wasn't very pleasant. In Vegas, I finished third, but I had the ball in head and like six balls to win the semifinal. There was the Predator event, so I won the first set, and the second set I was down 3-0, and I came back to 3-3. I was playing really good, as I was actually feeling really good, which is weird because I hadn't slept almost at all the night before because of my late match and a little bit of adrenaline. But anyways, I was actually feeling really good. So I just didn't play the right shot actually to get the shape from the 4 to the 5 it was. And well, with the shot clock and no extension, it was kind of hard on a hill. So it was like that. Yeah, I was supposed to win that game, right? Because
Oh,
I mean,
who
I
was
came
that
back at
against? Who was that against?
being hung.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that could have
So
been
then
a
she played good. Yeah.
you could have won the whole event if you win that match.
Yeah. Well, if you're in the final, you can already obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, you can win. You can win the event.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, it was, but I mean, it was. the first few days, like I'm still obviously then you kind of have this one moment the whole time in your head because it's like the, the most important one probably. Even though I finished third, I didn't feel like I did anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt all right, but then it's like one thing which turns the whole thing around.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, there was it. There was
Okay.
and it's in the last so many tournaments, I when I lose on the hill, so I don't really know. All of the losses are a little bit like that, but this one was the closest I've been to a final of a major tournament, so I'd say this is the most recent one.
Well, one thing that I really appreciate about this conversation is your outlook on things, and I can tell just by talking to you that you have many titles coming to you because you have this mindset that you're just going to continue to work and get better, and you're not really results oriented. Sure, you wanted to win that match, but you learned from it. You said I played the wrong shot from the 5 to the 6 or whatever it was, and a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people will say, "Oh, the table rolled off," or somebody in the crowd said something. But you're in these new environments now where at the highest levels, you're playing tough competitors. You're playing, you mentioned with the shot clock. I've only played with the shot clock once in my life. I actually played the other Kristina Tkach
Oh,
at
really?
at the first Predator event here in Arizona.
Oh,
And we were like, people don't realize playing with the shot clock just how hard it is. It seems
yeah,
easy. You guys make it look easy, but I had a particular shot against her where I thought I had to stretch, right? And so I had to go to my bag and I had to put my extension on my cue. And so then I called an extension and then I stretched and I still couldn't reach it. So then I had to get the
yeah,
bridge or the rest. And then I had to use that. And I'm rushing the shot to get it in. And then of course later in the rack, I really need an extension and I'm out of them. So that
yeah.
that shot clock brings a whole nother element that until you get seasoned, until you're a veteran, which you're becoming now, which you've become, you can manage that better. But for players who are just starting to play with a shot clock, man, it's brutal. Have you had any other moments where maybe being under the pressure of a shot clock has affected you?
Oh, yeah. Actually, in Vegas, it was. I played. That was the. I played there in Iowa. Also played with the shot clock, although it was longer. So it didn't. It was the shot clock in Iowa. I think it was 40 seconds, which I didn't even feel or like there was a shot clock. For some shots, I could feel a little bit rushed, but like you said, I already had more experience with it. Even in Vegas, I didn't feel it was bothering me at all. Although I think for 10 ball it should be a little bit longer. For 9 ball, 30 seconds is all right. But for 10 ball, you have much more clusters with hand drag balls that I think it's not enough really. I mean, it makes us more make more mistakes. That's all.
Yeah,
That's the
well, those
problem.
balls were not breaking well in Vegas either.
That's true.
And so
Yeah.
Melina, Mike, and I actually did a whole podcast that I was talking about the racking out there. And I said, I'm at the age now where when I rack the balls and look over top of them, I have a hard time seeing the gaps anymore. And some of the people who were reffing were like 30 years older than me. So I'm like, how in the world are they seeing the gaps? And sure enough, like, Sky Woodward would pound the rack and the balls wouldn't roll anywhere. And I'm like, somebody's got
One
to do
ball.
something. Yeah, it's crazy. So I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
see your
no.
point there. You definitely need more time to negotiate that. Do you prefer 10 ball or 9 ball? Which game do you prefer and why?
Oh, I definitely prefer 10 ball. I don't really like 9 ball. I mean, it's just too straightforward, I guess. Especially, I mean, let's say it's too easy, right? I play 9 ball tournaments, but I definitely prefer 10 ball. And my break in 10 ball is also better, I feel. 9 ball with the 9 on the spot is probably the game where my break is not that consistent yet. So that's what I'm working on, like now for these tournaments here. Like all the Euro tours are like that. Um, I definitely prefer tempo. I like one pocket now, although
Really?
I don't play. Yeah, I love it. Oh, it's so cool. I mean, I didn't know anything before, like until 3 months ago. I didn't know anything about one pocket, but now I play with the few players like with Roberto Gomez, and we played with a little bit with Larry Schwartz from Chicago, if you
Yeah.
know him. So, but it's yeah, it's really interesting, and
It's
I
perfect
def-
for you. It's the
yeah,
perfect
yeah,
game for
yeah.
you because you love logic, you love puzzles, figuring things out, and that's the beauty of that game. When I fell in love with it, I was living in Washington D.C., and there were people that I could give the 7 ball 2 plane rotation that I had no chance of beating them in one pocket. And the beauty was that they would play me for $5 a game all day long. So
Oh.
you just got to watch them move the balls around
Hmm.
and solve, like you'd put them in a trap and then they'd solve the puzzle and they'd get out. And before you know it, you're in a trap. And you're like, wow, how so the uniqueness of that game is that every single rack is different. We've all seen the highlights of Corey Deuel when he was soft breaking and every layout looked exactly the same in 9 ball and he's running the same. And, but one pocket couldn't be more different, right? Every layout is there's going to be new challenges, new things to present themselves, new ways to manipulate and win that particular rack. Uh, yeah, I'd love to see you play some one pocket. Do you have anything streamed playing one pocket?
Fortunately, no.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, not yet. But I'm
Well, I know
no. I
you're
don't
friends with
actually. I
Roberto.
think I,
Maybe I
yeah.
know you're friends with Roberto. Maybe next time you're with him, you guys could play a little one pocket match and stream it on your phone or something.
Oh yeah, for sure. I
He's a
beat him
great
last time.
he's a great one pocket.
He spotted me a lot, but I still beat him. So it's
Really? He's a
yeah,
great player. Great one pocket player.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, he's yeah, and it's fun to play with too. But yeah, yeah. No, it's so much more complete. I think because like in Nambo, like you said, almost it's almost all about the break.
Yeah.
It's like, but one pocket is more about the game and all of these strategies. It's more like chess. I don't play chess though, but I feel it's yeah, it's very interesting.
You should not start playing chess because I can tell by your personality that if you do, you'll start reading books on it, you'll dedicate all your time to
Yeah,
it.
I don't have time. That's why I don't play it.
Exactly. So we're
Yeah.
talking about you playing with Roberto and hanging out in the United States and doing some playing out here. I talk to a lot of women players who tell stories about maybe how men treated them playing pool, underestimated them, anything like that. Do you have any stories like that where maybe you walked up, nobody knew who you were, and they were just like, "Oh, let me show you how to hold the cue, honey," or something like that, and then you just tear them, you know,
No,
uh,
totally the opposite.
really?
To be honest, like yeah, most of the time they're like, "Oh, she's so good." Maybe that's why my confidence grew because they were always telling me how good I am. Even if I don't think, I mean, I think I have so much more to improve, obviously. But no, I never really felt this. What you said, I don't know.
That's because you play too good. If you
Yeah,
played
you
just a
see, you
little good, you might have.
this too.
So, over the years, I'm always intrigued by the differences in men and women in pool. So I watched just yesterday. I watched a match preparing for this interview that you played at Derby City, and I
Okay.
watched your technique. And your fundamentals are great. Your ball pocketing is great. You had a few dry breaks in 9 balls, so you just alluded to that. But you play great. And there's a lot of women out there that play great. But so far, you haven't really seen the women kind of top out at the same level as the men. Few exceptions. There's, a few of the Taiwanese or the Asian players are starting to get up into the, mid 700s. Kelly, up towards the high 700s. But it just seems like there's a little bit of a gap, and it doesn't make sense to me because power, strength, things that you would typically see in other sports that might give the men an advantage, you don't see in pool. So every time I have a lady on the podcast, I ask them, what are their thoughts? Why do you think that's the case? Do you think it's just a numbers game that more men play than women? Or do you think there's something biological? Just curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's for me. It's not only number game. It's like, I mean, it goes back to our ancestors. The thing is, men have they had always been like the hunters, and they had to bring the food to the table. So it just genetically it's just so much easier for them to be more competitive, and when they play the game, they get super competitive, right? Some of the girls do too, right? I also do it, but I just I just can see that the guys are their focus is much better. We all heard that like women are better in multitasking, which is like not good at all for me. We are better just because genetically, like we have to take care of our kids, everything. So you're like for me, our mind is more like when you do one thing, but then you're constantly aware of something else happening around you, just because we're just because our ancestors had to do it.
Yeah.
And men are more like focusing on one thing, which is like that they're like hunters and they had to do this and get to
Yeah,
kill that animal. And I think that's the like the basic on this. Then we can get much closer to them, but just we just have to work so much harder in order to have the same amount quality of focus they have on one thing for long. I can just give you an example. I find myself when I play a set, if I find myself after, let's say, 6 or 7 games, suddenly I have like a slight drop in my game. Just like I'm focusing in the beginning, 6 7 games, okay, but then I do an unforced error, just because like this is kind of, I don't know, my focus goes there. Then I have to maybe take a time out, refocus, then continue. But I found after 6 and 7 games that happens like quite often.
Yeah. Kelly Fisher answered that question exactly the same. She said that sometimes she's down on a shot, like an important shot, and she's
Yeah,
like, "Did I do the laundry?" Or starts thinking something completely random,
yeah,
and
yeah,
has to like get up and refocus and get back down and shoot the shot. And so it's just interesting, but I see it. I mean, there's so many things that my wife thinks about or worries about, or did I do this, did I take my daughter to gymnastics, or did I take him to soccer, or do the laundry, whatever. Whereas I'm focused on my tasks one at a time, knocking them out. So that's
yeah,
a good point. So thank you for that. Uh, if you could give, there's a lot of junior players coming up. There's one in the United States who's just so fun to follow and be around. Savannah Easton. Not sure if you've met her
yeah,
yet. Yeah.
yeah. We've played a few times already.
Oh, have you? Okay, great. And a few others that are up and coming, and their commitment level to the sport is great. And so, if you would think of somebody maybe in their position, or maybe even they haven't hit the radar yet, what advice, if you could only give them one piece of advice, what advice would you give them as they're beginning to kind of make that transition to being a more competitive player?
Yeah. Well, in the first place, in my opinion, they have to be very patient because this game is so complicated. You can get good results sometimes right on, especially like the women's tours. It's maybe easier to get good finishes, easier than men's when you start, I guess. Um, but you have to be very patient because the game is so complicated that you're not gonna. I mean, like it's very easy to get frustrated because um, even now it happens to me. There's some situations where you still don't know what's the best way to solve it, or maybe your technique is something's lacking in your technique that day. Um, anyways, the most important thing is for them to be patient and to keep practicing, like to work every day on specific things and do drills, not just play random games. Like I know maybe before in the States people weren't really used to making drills that much, working on just specific. Maybe today I'm just gonna do a follow drill, for example. or just to draw the ball and speed, uh, speed control and everything. They were just more used to playing more games,
Hmm.
gambling. But I think it's very important to work on the basics as much as they can, so that their game can grow much quicker when
Mm.
their basics are very solid, like
Yeah, that's
their
great.
technique, their
Great
cue
advice.
ball control. Yeah. But just mainly they have to be patient. Like me, I had to be so patient. It took me what, I don't know. I lived in Spain for 8 years, and I wasn't really. There were 2 or 3 years where we I couldn't even play European Championships or Youth Tours because of some federation issues. But I was still going to practice and just getting the work done. Some months more than others, but you never. For me, it was important never really to quit, because I was just dedicated to that, and I was just hoping that um, at some point I would just get maybe more opportunities to travel, or I kind of created the opportunities for me. I'd say, like
Yeah.
changing my job and all these things. So yeah, I. I just think I have to be patient and not focus on results that much, because that's where many people, I think, when may fail. If you focus on results too much, then you kind of forget to enjoy the game. Like you mentioned Savannah. One of the I played her a few times. So after the first time I played her, we finished. I beat her. So on the next day, I like ask her, but did you had fun playing? Did you enjoy? And she's like, no, I don't really have fun playing tournaments. Only when I win. And I'm like, but that's not really the right mindset, right, for me.
Yeah.
And actually, I saw that from the Filipinos. When you see the Filipinos, they don't really care if they win or lose. They're always laughing and
Yeah.
always hanging out. It's just, I think that's really the right mindset, and it takes the pressure away. And this is what will keep you in the game forever, I think.
Yeah, no, I can't agree more. It's about process over results, right? And it sounds like you've mastered that, right? You know what you need to do to get better, and you don't worry about it. Obviously, you're not happy that you got knocked out in third place in Las Vegas when you had a chance to win the tournament, but at the same time, you know the mistake you made, so you're able to focus on that and work on that for next time. So I think that's great advice, to anyone out there that's playing, is not focusing on the results so much. Have a good time. I remember just playing in local tournaments, times where I would slump and I would go out, 4 times a week and play in a tournament and get knocked out. And I felt like I was playing good pool, but I wasn't getting the results. But then I remember telling myself, go out and just have fun tonight. And guess what happened? I win the tournament, because I'm just
Yeah.
focused on having fun, and beat good players. And, it was great. But Kristina, this has been great. I've really enjoyed having you on and getting to know you a little bit. I want to give you a chance to give a shout out to your sponsors or anyone else that has really helped you along the way.
Thank you, Joey. Yeah, for me it was also very interesting. Hope we can have a chat again soon. First of all, want to thank my Puho, the academy in Bulgaria, because they've played a really huge part in in my pool game, in the last 2 years. Since I went back to Bulgaria and started playing there, they helped me travel more. So, in the first place, I really want to thank them, Oleg and my coach Ludmil, for doing a good job also on that. Um, then my sponsors are MezQs. I recommend it to everyone. I mean, yeah, I'm very happy with my cues anyway. Yeah, Kamui tips. Then in the zone sportswear, which I'm gonna have a new line coming up soon. So if anyone is interested, can soon they'll be able to check out my new jerseys. And yeah,
How do
that's
how
pretty
do
much it.
how do people find you online? they want to follow you.
They can
Follow
follow
your-
me. Yeah, they can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, Kristina Zlateva. If you have any difficulties remembering that, you can write it down. It was just down here. So yeah, that's why they can follow me. I also try to stream some matches from tournaments where they allow me, so they can also find some matches there, and they can always contact me. I'm very approachable, as you can see. So yeah.
Yes. I can agree with that. You've been great. Kristina, it's been an honor and a pleasure. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you at the next event.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you again soon. I'll be back to States in May, so maybe we can see each other somewhere.